Foreign Policy Advisor Ophir Falk, who's joining me right here. He'll be coming in. Thank you very much for doing so, sir. Also joining me, retired Air Force Brigadier General John Teichert and former Iranian political prisoner, NYU Professor of International Affairs, Kian Tabakash. Thank you very much for being with me, Tajbaksh, for being with us again. First, Mr. Teichert, General, help me and the audience understand this idea that this is on the president's timeline. When he says it's over, it's over. To me, that seems overly optimistic, if not deceptive. What is your take about how easy it is to end this on your say-so?
Chris, I think the press conferences at the Pentagon and the White House give us a little bit of clue of what's going on in the mind of the president. First of all, in both of those press conferences, they discussed the idea we're now prioritizing on striking industrial capacity, military-related industrial capacity. And I think the president sees doing that as an opportunity, absent regime change, to have a long-term impact on the ability of Iran to reconstitute and threaten. And then something that came out of the White House press conference that I found very interesting was a new twist on the definition of unconditional surrender. Not the regime saying that they surrender, but de facto not having the capability to defend or to threaten. And that is a new definition of unconditional surrender. And I think those give us a clue on the president's desired off-ramp to get this done and declare victory in a week or two.
So the idea that the president will be able to declare victory in a week or two, it seems to be a very naive assessment of what we're exactly fighting. I remember during the early war on terror for America after 9/11, there was this turn of we're fighting the Taliban, we're fighting al-Qaeda. No, it turns out we're fighting an idea. And how difficult is it to just say, okay, we're going to stop now, and this is victory?
Right, so I don't think the president is naive at all, and I think the objective is actually pretty clear. There's no daylight between Israel and the U.S. on this. It's an epic tag team between the president and the prime minister, and our objective is to remove the existential threat posed by the Ayatollah regime. The best way of doing that is removing the Ayatollah regime. Another way of doing that...
The president says he is not interested in regime change.
I didn't say regime change. I did not say regime change.
So what's the difference?
One way is to remove the Ayatollah regime and create the conditions, which is what we're doing right now. We're creating the conditions for the Iranian people to take their destiny in their own hands. At the same time, we're degrading their military capabilities to the ground. We're hitting them every day harder and harder. They've never been hit so hard ever before. And we're going to continue to hit them as hard as we can until there is, as the president said, unconditional surrender. Now, either they surrender or they can't say they surrender, but we're going to degrade them until they can't pose a threat to Israel or to the world anymore. Now, you got to understand, for 47 years, they've been saying death. It hasn't started yesterday. For 47 years, they've been saying death to America, death to America, death to Israel, and have acted upon that. They've taken American hostages in the embassy in '79. They killed 241 Marines.
1983.
Right, in Beirut. They've killed thousands of Americans. They tried to murder the president twice. They shot at our prime minister. They've killed thousands of Israelis and thousands of innocent people throughout the world. So this thing has to stop. And it's stopping now. And we're fighting this war not only for us, but for our kids and for our grandkids.
Help people deal with something that is absolutely bubbling up in America. There is a perspective of, I totally get what you're saying for you. If I lived in Israel, this can't end until these guys are gone. They're right here. They're trying to kill me all the time, and they've got a lot of bad friends right in my neighborhood. Look what's happening on the northern border now for Israel. This is all about Iran with Hezbollah, and it's now a second front in the war. Americans aren't feeling it, that we're doing this for you in their mind. We are doing this for Israel to help you be more safe. These guys can't mess with us, not where they are. They've never gotten a hand on us, and now we just kicked the hornet's nest with a president who promised he wouldn't do the same mistakes of the past. And here we are in repeat mode. Is that an unfair analysis?
Yeah, I think that's an unfair analysis because I think the president gets it. He gets it. If we don't remove the Ayatollah regime threat now, it's going to be kicked down the road to our kids and our grandkids. And look at what they're doing today. They're blackmailing the world with oil. What would you think they would do if they could blackmail the world with nukes? What do you think would happen then?
So then you have to remove the regime.
We have to remove the threat, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're removing the threat that they won't be able to blackmail you anymore with oil. They won't be able to produce ballistic missiles that will reach New York and Washington and LA, because that's what they were doing. That's what they were planning on doing, and that's what we are degrading. That's what we're doing right now.
Right, I get it, but if they're still there, okay, right, they come back, right? Eventually they'll come back. That's what happened. You guys spent the 12 days. You said, by the way, this isn't over. This isn't enough. But it was enough for America at that time. So it ends. We're told their nuclear program is obliterated. Clearly it wasn't. If you do not change the regime and take an active hand in creating something else in Iran, which I think the American people have almost no appetite for, aren't you just asking for more of this? How do you remove the threat of the Ayatollah but not the regime?
Right. Again, the best way of removing the threat that they pose is to remove the regime. That's the best way. And we are creating the conditions for the Iranian people to change the regime. It's the end of the day, it's up to the Iranian people to take their destiny in their own hands. And we've never been closer. This is like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for the Iranian people to do the right thing. We are clobbering the Ayatollahs. And we took out one of the Ayatollah, and I'm sure the Iranian people don't want to replace one Ayatollah with another Ayatollah.
But didn't they, with putting his son in there?
The people didn't. The people didn't. And I don't think they want that. Over 80% of the Iranian people do not want this Ayatollah regime. And I think they'll take their destiny in their own hands. But at any rate, we will make sure that they won't pose a threat to us. And not to the American people. I think the American people understand that.
I get it. I appreciate your perspective. Let me bounce it off Keon, who is, of course, an American who was held by Iran illegally for a very long time. Here, you know what I'm speaking to, Keon. You understand the perspective in America that this is not about us and what matters most at home. There are all kinds of psychos and bad regimes in the world. The idea that what the president is saying can lead to success, which means we're beating them, we're degrading, which we hear from the American government, and we're hearing from Ophir also on behalf of the Israelis, and that's enough, and then we're going to leave, and when we say it's over, it's over. What do you make of the intelligence of that assessment?
Well, Chris, good to see you again. Look, as an Iranian American who was held in prison in Iran for several years, for being two things. One, for being an American, and the other for being a democracy activist. I can look at this in two ways. As an American, I look at the Iranian external behavior, and I look at President Trump's military operation, and it seems to me that in terms of its content, it is well thought out and well targeted. In other words, as far as the Americans' national security is concerned, and Israel's, defanging the military capacities to threaten U.S. Partners in the region is a good thing to do. What I would say, though, also as an American, is I think President Trump has not done a very good job in explaining to the American people the total context and the larger context of this war. For example, I think that he should have gone to the American people and explained that October 7th changed the rules of the game in the Middle East. And it's not about what an imminent threat means today. It's about a compounding threat over time. There was clear intelligence. I mean, it was in the newspapers that the Iranian regime leaders decided they were going to change. They were discussing changing their nuclear doctrine from claiming they didn't want a nuclear weapon to saying we should go for a nuclear weapon. So when that comes on the agenda, things change, and no one is going to wait for Iran to become North Korea. And so there's a kind of pressing urgency about moving to prevent that. Now, I think President Trump should have gone to the American people, should have explained the fact that even though we've been in a war with Iran and declared by Iran, if you remember last night, I said, Chris, it was Iran that started this war 47 years ago. President Trump could have said to the American people, even though we've been in this war for a long time, things have changed. There's pressing urgency. We cannot wait. We need to degrade them now. And so I don't think it's a question of how to get out. I think it's a question of explaining to the American people why we should stay in for now.
I understand, and that is cogent, but it is also uncorroborated. If they have proof that there was an imminent threat, they have not offered it up to this point. I get the subjective notion of the regime escalating and exacerbating the situation and wanting to be even more aggressive. That is different than motivating a legal unilateral military action under United States law. And look, that was the president's choice not to go to the people, to do it the way he did it. The question is, how will it end? Yeah, Keon, no, actually, let me get to the general and then let me go. We'll keep having this conversation, brother. We're not done. We're going to be talking about this for a while. In general, that's my last question to you, which is, I don't see how it can end anytime soon. I just don't. I don't understand it, literally. Help me understand what I don't see, that you could just walk away from a bunch of zealots who don't want it to end, and it ends.
Chris, I think the messaging from today was that we accept some long-term risk, but we degrade what they have now to project power and threaten others. And by taking out industrial capacity, we roll them back for several years. But I agree with the other panelists that the challenge is here that we're not seeing either the bubbling up from within the regime of someone that's going to flip the regime, and we can't conceptualize because we don't see it, an opposition group that can overthrow the regime. And without either of those two, then there is no regime change. And the only other way to get out of this war in the near term is to find an off-ramp that means that you have stopped the threat today and you have stopped the reconstitution of the threat for a certain period of time.
Yeah, I'm just saying I'm waiting for the administration to help us understand that they thought about getting out when they got in. But General, I appreciate you. Keon, thank you very much. Ophir, thank you very much for being with us. Appreciate it. Okay.